G'day YouTube. Warbles on a lot here. It's time to have a movie in the hammock. We've got a yellow-tailed black cockatoo over there. Besides, it wants to be in it too. Well, welcome to the dispatch from the island incontinent of Abbott-ania. We call it the island incontinent because we've sort of lost control of our political bodily functions, and we're going to shit all over treaties and evidence and international scientific consensus. What we seem to be going to do is go backwards in time in Australia politically. There's only one woman in the cabinet. This week, Prime Muppet, Tony the Mad Monk Abbott, he seems to have taken a leaf from the story of King Tut, who tried to turn back the tide. So what Tony Abbott did was he's placed his faith, behaviourally speaking, in the idea that if there's no data, then there's no problem. So what he's done to make sure there's no data is he's abolished the Minister for Science. Australia now no longer has any government Ministry of Science. He prefaced that by announcing that the Australia Council, which distributes research grants to people who put in applications, they're going to come under a political correctness control by the Prime Minister's office so that he can scratch out any of what he calls ridiculous research. Considering that statement was made by a man who in 2009 was famously quoted as stating that in his view regarding anthropogenic global warming, the evidence is, to say the least, contentious, and climate science is absolute crap. So that's the attitude of the man who's going to abolish ridiculous research grants to anybody who wants to, maybe do any research into global warming. No, that's ridiculous. No need for that in a Liberal National Party government-run economy. We don't have liberty to think or liberty to do research. We're a bit like Russia. Didn't the Russian fucking Spetsnaz commandos piratically take out a Greenpeace boat? Fairly sure they did, Arctic Pioneer or something. And because they'd launched a rubber ducky that was towing a survival pod, and they'd had two fellas climb up the legs of a oil drilling platform, they got 11 shots fired across the bows to dissuade them from climbing up there, and then the commandos showed up at dawn in helicopters with machine guns. The whole crew's been tied up in the mess. The captain and the crew are charged with piracy, illegally entering a restricted zone, attempting to take over an oil rig, terrorism, and conducting illegal scientific research. So Australia is just like Premier Putin. He does not like politically incorrect research. Well, we don't have a fucking Minister of Science because science is politically incorrect in the island incontinent of Abbott-ania. He got rid of the Climate Change Commission. Bunch of scientists paid by the government to look at the data and provide the best guess analysis of, this is what the trends are saying now at the moment according to what we know. No, we got rid of that. The Green Energy Finance Corporation, set up by an Act of Parliament, so he's going to have to wait till July when he gets control of the Senate, if he gets control of the Senate. But half the Fruit Loop micro parties who've got senators in seem to be extreme right-wing people anyway, so he might get control of the Senate. But he wrote to the Green Energy Finance Corporation and said, well, look, I'm going to abolish you, so you guys better stop lending money to these bloody greeny ideas for doing things a sensible way. Well, here in New England, in Inverell, there's an abattoir which used to run on coal-fired electricity, and now They've got a methane digester over there, and everything they cut off the carcasses that can't be sold in the retail side goes into the methane digester with the organic waste and the shit and everything else that builds up at an abattoir, and they run all their electrics on pig shit, methane. Well, they needed about $10 million or something to cobble all that together, so Tony Windsor, when he was the Member of Parliament, organised the Green Energy Finance Corporation to lend them the $10 million so that now they don't have to pay any friggin' electricity bills. So that loan's paid off, and, you know, Inverell is a cleaner town. I'm a vegetarian, I'm not in favour of chopping up pigs after you kill them so other people can eat them, but, you know, at least it's better they don't burn coal to do it. Okay, Tony Abbott's got rid of that nexus. He said he was going to get rid of all of these refugee boats. Well, what he's actually done is he's appointed a 3-star general to be in charge of not telling the Australian population that the boats are coming. The previous government, you know, used to fry itself in public opinion 3 or 4 times a week. Oh, another boat's coming. Oh, here comes another boat. This one's fucking sunk and everybody's drowning. Oh, no, not Tony. He's pretty much cooked it up with the Murdoch press that there'll be a media silence on boats because you've not got any dissemination of information that the boats have arrived. But I'm pretty sure somebody will organise a link to Google Earth and the journalists will be keeping track of it, and the boats will appear on YouTube, and then there'll be a shit fight in public opinion. But yeah, the other idea is that Tony Abbott, who's, you know, prime muppet of a nation of 22 million Aussies who really want to think about sport and fashion and who's going to win the football, what's the price of a meat pie anyway, he's told them that he's going to station Australian Federal Police intelligence agents in Indonesia so that they can pay the locals to spy on each other and tell them when an illegal boat's going to get set sail. Well, the other idea is to buy all the boats that could possibly come and annoy him. 750,000 boats up there, and he's going to set up a whole new fucking industry making loopy boats to sell to the Australian spies. But the Indonesians, and it's only 225 million of them, their government said actually fuck off, that would be completely, you know, violating our national space and territorial rights, and we're not interested in letting you do that, Tony. So if he tries really hard, he might actually manage to provoke a confrontation with the Indonesians. And like I said, 225 million of them and 22 million of us. And like, we did this in the 1960s, but back in the 1960s, we had 4-engine Lincoln bombers stationed in Darwin that could bomb Jakarta. And then after that, we got English Electric Canberra jet bombers that could bomb Jakarta. And then after that, we paid for F-111s that could bomb Jakarta. But they all had problems with the wings falling off because a subcontractor for spare parts had made the fuselage centre-span brace out of steel instead of tungsten or something that he was supposed to do it. So therefore he thought he was only making spare parts to sit on the shelf, but when Australia ordered a squadron of F-111s, they ramped up production and got parts off the supply shelves, and therefore F-111s went out. The first mission on Vietnam, they went to go supersonic and the wings fell off every fucking one of them. So we had Phantoms for about 5 or 8 years while they fixed out the problems with the F-111s, but the Phantoms, they could bomb Jakarta. And we phased out the F-111s last year, or maybe the year before. We got a lot of early model FA-18s, the Hornets, the ones that have got the fuel tank between the hot section of the engines, and they haven't got separated parallel hydraulics or electric lines to the controls. So the Americans phased them out and went to the Super Hornet. Well, we bought all the cheapies. I don't know whether the Hornets can bomb Jakarta. So just at the time, and that's right, we've got some submarines that don't work either. And the Indonesians are just buying submarines, and they've just bought Apache attack helicopters. Like I said, there's 10 of them for every one of us. And the Americans have got it figured out. That's why they supply arms to the Indonesians. And you know, like the Indonesians, they shoot M16s and AR-15s. The Australians, we shoot a thing called a plastic Fantastic that was designed in Austria. We don't have any Apache attack helicopters. But we are buying some American tanks that won't fit on the bridges anywhere in Australia. Yeah, bit interesting. The Indonesians, of course, because there's more of them, they can eat more Kentucky Fried Chicken and drink more Coca-Cola than Australia can. They're about a 10-to-1 ratio. So when Tony Abbott provokes a shit fight with Indonesia and expects America to bail him out because we've been fighting wherever they wanted to get their ass kicked, from Vietnam to Iraq, twice, and then bloody Absurdistan, he's going to find the Americans will just say, well, actually, you got yourself into it, Tony. Fucking get yourself out of it, mate. That is what's going to happen. He's counting on the fact that we've got Yankees rotating through Darwin because they're afraid that if they leave them all at Okinawa, they're within missile range from not only China but North Korea as well. Tony thinks because we've got an American base at Darwin that says it's not a base because they only spend 6 months a year there, each one of them, but there's always a permanent presence. He thinks he can rely on the Yankees, and I don't think he's right there. But apart from his military delusions of adequacy and his abject denial of climate science, he's got this attitude toward the environment that because all of his constituents, being shareholders and shopkeepers, they firmly believe they need to get rid of what they call red tape so that they can more severely oppress the workers, and they get rid of penalty rates and drive wages down and try and compete with countries in Africa that pay $2 a week. I think if they want to live in a country in Africa where they pay $2 a week to the workers, they should fucking go and live there. Don't bring Nigerian standards to Australia or Somalian standards to Australia or fucking Pakistani or Bangladeshi or Thai standards to Australia. You want to live like that, go there and bloody do it. I'm quite happy to live in Australia according to Australian standards. But, Gina Rinehart, big supporter of the National Party, miners, loggers, farmers, their National Party, shopkeepers and shareholders, their Liberal Party, blue-collar workers who want to be unionised working for the Liberal Party or the Labor Party voters, that's the Liberal Party or the National Party voters, that's the Labor Party. So we wind up with 93% of Australia voted against the Greens, right? By translating the election. Voting for the Greens would have meant voting to do something significant to reduce Australia's carbon emissions. That would mean accepting the fact that 4/5 of the world's fossil fuel that we know about is in the ground, has to stay in the ground, so there's no point giving anybody an exploration permit to look for more coal to set up a new coal mine, because 4 out of the 5 coal mines we know about have got to be shut down, otherwise game over through, tipping points and accelerated global warming. We have to wake up to ourselves or we kill our grandchildren. It's about that savage. Tony Abbott and the shareholders and the miners and the blue-collar workers, they don't want to know about it. They really don't. When Tony Abbott has abandoned Australia's serious efforts to hit our greenhouse targets, he was only trying to get it down by 5% on what it was in 2000. He's not trying to do anything significant. And to be honest, I think the global economy is unravelling faster than the world is running out of oil. Now, the oil price isn't spiking dramatically because there's just not that much demand for it, because people know it doesn't matter what they spend money on as an enterprise, it goes broke. So the economy is kind of in terminal decline. In fact, I thought up, because I'm an aeroplane head, I thought up an aeronautical metaphor or analogy. Let's say the Australian economy is the engines and the fuel, right? The Australian environment is the airframe, the wings, the bit that gives you lift and control. The Australian society is everybody in the passenger cabin, right? The Australian government, that's the people sitting up there under the lump at the front. It's got a lump like that so the pilot can sit on his wallet without bumping his head on the roof. Well, the Labor Party, they've been coping with the fact that the global financial crisis in 2008 means that there's not enough fuel to just push the throttle forward and pull the stick back and keep on climbing at a high angle like looks good when they leave the airport. What they've been doing is trying to fly on the fuel they've got without losing any height, but without doing anything that's going to overstress the airframe. Right? And that means that they're looking for thermals to get into to try and get the nose up a bit, you know, sell a bit of gas here, sell a bit of coal there, do whatever we actually have to make sure we've got enough tax to pay the people who are on the dole because all the shops are going broke. And that means sometimes they have to drop the nose, you know. They're basically looking for the flattest patch of dirt with the smallest trees on to pull off an emergency forced landing. And the idea is to keep the structure of society intact and not destroy the environment so that when you're on the ground you can camp under the wing. Right? And you can sleep inside at night maybe. So there's something of the environment left after the economy crashes. But the economy is crashing. Right? That's the theory. Glide the jumbo jet down and not trash the place. Well, that wasn't good enough for the busyness people, the people who think that the look of the thing is what matters and they have to be able to grow the economy no matter what. Cut back on social conditions, cut back on social services, cut back on environmental regulations. If somebody says that we'll climb better if we have less weight, so let's go out onto the wing and cut away bits of the wing and throw it away because that's heavy, let them try it, you know. Just bust up the environment however you want as long as you can say that you think it'll make money. That's now acceptable at the pointy end. Right? And as far as I can see, what they plan on doing is that the engines are about to flame out because we're totally out of fuel. Right? China's economy has now started to shrink. Australia's unemployment has started to rise, so they're going to pull the nose right up and they're going to go out and they're going to light a fire in one of the empty fuel tanks. And the idea is that they're just bright enough to know that hot air rises. And when the hot air rises, they're going to treat that as a permanent thermal, see? And they're going to try and turn tightly enough to get the right wing into the hot smoke from the burning left wing, right? And they don't know that as they increase the bank angle, the stall angle increases, and by the time they get into a vertical bank, so the right wing is in the thermal of the hot burning left wing, they've now got no wing that's actually doing any lift, so that's about the time they're going to flip out and stall and spin and crash and do what we call a Canada John landing. Right? And here I am, sort of sitting up with 7% of the passengers at the very back end of the aeroplane hoping that we don't get mangled in the crash. And we know it's coming. And there's nothing we can do about it because all the rest of the passenger cabin has elected to put the fucking lunatics in the cockpit where they're right now stepping, treading, pushing, pulling, twisting, flipping every switch, button, dial and lever they can find in the hope of trying to make an economy grow when there is no environmental surplus. Scary, scary thought, isn't it? Welcome to the island incontinent of Abbott-ania, where the mad monk is in charge. The bloke who was 3/4 trained as a priest. So I suppose that means you'd have to expect he's going to bugger up a lot of things. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. We're going to set one wing on fire and we're going to turn tightly enough that we can thermal in the smoke off our own burning wing. It's the Liberal National Party's minority coalition government version of a perpetual motion machine. If only I wasn't joking. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. That's the Father's Day hammock. Ciao.